Imagine waking up one morning and feeling that something has shifted, but no one says it out loud. People you have known for years seem distant. Their smiles are gone. Their tone is colder. Messages slow down. Conversations stop. You feel the silence before you understand the reason. Then it hits you. Someone has already painted you as the problem, and they did it before you even knew there was a story being told. That is what makes this kind of experience so confusing and so painful. It is not always loud at first. It does not always begin with direct attacks or dramatic scenes. Many times it starts with small comments, quiet hints, and fake concern. Someone says they are worried about you. They suggest you have changed. They hint that you are difficult, unstable, selfish, or hard to deal with, but they never offer real proof. That is what makes it work. The lie is wrapped in concern, so it sounds believable. The point is not just to make people dislike you. The real goal is to control the story before you even realize there is a story. And once people hear that version first, every future moment with you gets filtered through it. A normal mistake looks suspicious. A sad day looks like instability. Even your effort to explain yourself can get twisted into more so-called evidence. If this has happened to you, stay with me, because once you see the pattern clearly, you stop wasting energy on a game that was built for you to lose. What hurts even more is that this is rarely about truth. It is usually about image, control, and protection. A person with strong narcissistic traits often depends on looking innocent, calm, admired, and reasonable in the eyes of other people. The moment you begin setting limits, asking questions, noticing unhealthy behavior, or becoming emotionally stronger, that image starts to shake. Instead of looking inward, they create a new story. In that story, they are the victim and you are the threat. If others believe them, they avoid responsibility and keep the sympathy they want. That is why this kind of attack goes straight for your reputation. Most people spend years building trust through honesty, kindness, and consistency. But one manipulative person can try to replace that whole history with doubt. Suddenly you start wondering who believes what, you question your own judgment, you feel cut off from people who once felt safe. That emotional whiplash is real. But here is the part many people miss. The behavior is not random, it is deliberate. It is a form of manipulation meant to keep control by shaping how others see you. Once you understand that, your focus begins to change. You stop asking, why are people believing this so easily? And start asking, what is this person trying to protect by doing this? That shift matters. It gives you clarity. It reminds you that the goal of the smear is not fairness, it is influence. And when you understand the real goal, you stop taking the bait in the same way. Keep listening, because what you do next can either feed the cycle or start breaking it. When false stories spread about you, your first instinct is usually to defend yourself. That makes sense. Your name, your relationships, your sense of fairness, all of it feels under attack at once. You want to call people. You want to explain your side. You want to show proof, clear confusion, and fix every misunderstanding before it grows larger. It feels logical to think that if people just hear the truth, everything will settle down. But in situations like this, that is often not how it works. In many cases, the harder you try to prove you are not the villain, the more trapped you become in a cycle that drains your energy. A manipulative person often expects that reaction. They know that once they plant doubt, you will likely spend endless time trying to pull it out. And while you are doing that, they can stay calm, look unaffected, and even use your emotional response against you. They can say, see, look how angry they are, or I knew they would overreact. Suddenly, your effort to clear your name becomes part of the story being used against you. That is why constant self-defense can backfire. It can strengthen the narrative instead of weakening it. It can turn your life into a long audition for people who may have already chosen what they want to believe. And that is exhausting. Watch this closely, because this is where many good people lose themselves. They stop living and start performing innocence. They stop healing and start chasing approval. And that chase can consume your peace faster than the lie itself. That does not mean you should never speak. There are times when a calm correction matters, especially if your work, your legal safety, or your closest relationships are involved. But there is a big difference between offering one clear explanation and spending weeks trying to convince people who are already committed to misunderstanding you. The first is healthy. The second is a trap. Emotionally healthy people usually look at patterns over time. They notice how you behave, how you treat others, how consistent you are, and whether your actions match the story they heard. People who truly care about you are more likely to ask questions before making up their minds. They will want context. They will want to hear from you. And if they do not, that tells you something important. It tells you the issue may no longer be about truth at all. It may be about comfort, fear, gossip, or loyalty to the louder voice. That is painful, but it is also revealing. Your power in these moments is not endless explanation. It is steady character. Keep living in a way that matches your values. Be respectful. Be clear. Be honest. Let your actions say what your panic wants to scream. Trust built over years has a quiet strength that rumors cannot erase overnight. Lies travel fast because they are dramatic, but they also need constant feeding to stay alive. Real character does not need daily promotion. It shows up again and again in the way you live, and over time that matters more than a performance. If this part is hitting home, stay with me because the next truth is one of the hardest to accept and one of the most freeing. One of the deepest shocks in this experience is realizing that not everyone who leaves was truly with you to begin with. That truth can sting like a second betrayal. First there is the lie, then there is the heartbreak of seeing people believe it without even checking with you. You start asking questions that echo in your mind for a long time. How could they think this about me? Did they not know me better than that? Were those relationships ever as solid as I thought they were? These questions hurt because they shake your trust in your own history. But emotionally healthy people do not rush to judgment based on one person's version of events. If they hear something upsetting about someone they care about, their first response is usually curiosity, not condemnation. They ask, they observe. They compare what they heard with what they have personally seen. They know people can exaggerate. They know stories can be shaped. They know some people twist facts to protect themselves. Their loyalty is not blind, but it is also not flimsy. On the other hand, some people are drawn to drama, gossip, and simple stories. They like feeling informed. They like being on the safer side of the group. Some may side with the manipulative person because it protects their place in the family, workplace, or social circle. They do not want to become the next target, so they go along. Maybe not out of cruelty, but out of fear, weakness, or convenience. Still, that choice tells you something real. It tells you who can think for themselves and who cannot. And painful as it is, that knowledge can save you from investing your heart in people who were never truly safe for it. This is why trying to win everyone back can become an endless and exhausting mission. Some people made up their minds before you even knew there was a problem. They are not searching for truth. They are searching for confirmation. And no amount of proof, pain, or pleading will change the mind of someone who is attached to the version that feels easiest for them to believe. Chasing their approval will only leave you more drained, more rejected, and more disconnected from yourself. But here is the turning point. Instead of measuring your value by how many people stayed, start looking at the quality of the people who did. Pay attention to the ones who reached out, the ones who listened, the ones who did not rush to judgment, the ones who watched your character instead of swallowing gossip. Those are the people showing you what real trust looks like. These relationships are often quieter than the dramatic ones. They may not be flashy, they may not be loud, but they are healthier, steadier, and far more dependable. Hard seasons reveal people. They show you who values fairness over popularity, truth over rumor, and courage over comfort. That is not a small thing. It is a hard gift, but it is still a gift. And if you can accept that, you stop seeing the loss as pure destruction. You begin to see it as exposure. Not everything that falls away was meant to stay. Not everyone who disappears was your person. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually clarity arriving in a painful form. Keep going, because the next part matters more than most people realize. What you do with your emotions in this season can either protect you or hand more power back to the person who harmed you. When someone turns others against you, the emotional impact is huge. You are not just dealing with criticism. You are dealing with betrayal, false stories, damaged trust, and the sharp pain of being deeply misunderstood. Of course you feel angry. Of course you feel sad, scared, frustrated, and overwhelmed. Those feelings are normal. The problem is not that you have them. The problem is that a manipulative person often wants you to express them in ways that can be used against you. People with strong narcissistic traits are often skilled at pushing emotional buttons. They provoke, they exaggerate, they distort, they keep pressing until you finally break, raise your voice, send the angry text, or collapse in front of the wrong audience. Then they point to your reaction as if it proves everything they said. They ignore the pressure that built up over weeks, months, or even years and focus only on that one moment. To outsiders who never saw the whole picture, it can seem like you exploded for no reason. That is why emotional regulation becomes one of your strongest forms of protection. It does not mean pretending you are not hurt. It does not mean burying your feelings and smiling through pain. It means noticing what you feel without letting that feeling control your next move. There is a major difference between feeling rage and acting from it. Even a short pause can save you from saying something that will later be pulled out of context and used as a weapon. That pause is power. It gives you room to choose a response that matches your values instead of your panic. And in situations like this, that kind of self-control is not weakness. It is protection. It is wisdom. It is how you keep your dignity when someone is trying to pull you into chaos. Another reason emotional steadiness matters is simple. Your peace matters more than winning every argument. When you are constantly reacting to rumors, accusations, and provocation, your attention starts revolving around the very person who hurt you. You check your phone too much. You replay conversations in your mind. You imagine what people are saying when you are not in the room. You start rehearsing defenses before anything has even happened. That kind of hypervigilance is draining. It can swallow your mental energy and keep you emotionally trapped long after the actual conversation ends. But when you learn to respond with thought instead of reacting on instinct, you begin taking your power back. You decide where your attention goes. You decide what deserves your energy. And over time, calm behavior creates a pattern that thoughtful people notice. While the manipulative person depends on drama, your composure tells a very different story. It shows restraint. It shows honesty. It shows self-respect. That does not mean everyone will suddenly understand you. Some never will. But it does mean you are not helping the false story grow. You are not handing over fresh material. Emotional regulation is not about looking perfect. It is about protecting your clarity and refusing to let someone else decide who you become. And if this is helping you see your own situation more clearly, hold on, because now we get to the part that rebuilds confidence. Not fake confidence, real confidence. The kind that comes from knowing your life still has weight, even if someone is trying to rewrite your name in other people's minds. When someone spends weeks, months, or even years trying to damage your image, it can feel like everything good you built has been erased overnight. You may start believing that every relationship is poisoned, every conversation is being judged, and every person is looking at you through someone else's distorted lens. In that state, the natural urge is to put all your energy into changing people's opinions. But the strongest way to protect your reputation is usually not loud defense. It is quiet consistency. False stories can spread quickly, yes, but they struggle to survive when reality keeps contradicting them. Your reputation was never built in one conversation. It was built in hundreds of moments, choices, habits, and interactions that revealed your character over time. People who truly know you have seen how you act under pressure, how you treat others, how you respond to stress, and who you are when no one is watching. One person's accusation cannot fully erase years of honesty, kindness, responsibility, and respect. Some people may believe the rumor for a while, but those who pay attention to patterns will often begin to notice that your actions do not match the image being pushed. Consistency also keeps fear from making your decisions for you. If you become obsessed with repairing your image, you may start changing your behavior to please everybody. You may stop setting boundaries because you are scared of being called selfish. You may overgive, over-explain, and overextend yourself just to appear good. And in trying to prove the lie is false, you can drift away from your real self. That is why values matter so much here. Live by them, return to them, let them stabilize you when public opinion feels shaky and unfair. Emotionally healthy people usually trust what they repeatedly observe more than what they briefly hear. If someone sees you acting with integrity again and again, speaking respectfully, owning your mistakes, and treating people fairly, they eventually start questioning a story that paints you as cruel or manipulative. Over time, the gap between your steady behavior and the other person's ongoing drama becomes hard to ignore. Manipulation needs constant maintenance. Real character quietly supports itself through everyday life. And there is another gift hidden in consistency. It gives you inner confidence. When you know your behavior lines up with your principles, you no longer feel the same desperate need to convince every single person that you are innocent. You begin to understand that your worth is not decided by rumor, rejection, or temporary misunderstanding. Your worth is shown in the life you keep living. That mindset weakens the emotional grip of false accusations. Because your identity is no longer hanging on whether everyone approves of you. You know some people will never see clearly. Some may never admit they were wrong. Some may stay loyal to the lie because it suits them. But you keep acting with honesty, patience, and self-respect, not because it guarantees applause, but because it reflects who you are. That is real strength. And in the long run, integrity speaks with a kind of credibility that arguments never can. Keep that close, because one of the next mistakes many people make after being smeared is trying to save every relationship. That instinct is understandable. But if you do not set boundaries, the damage can keep repeating in different forms long after the first storm should have ended. One of the most draining mistakes people make after being turned into the villain is believing they can repair every broken connection if they just find the perfect words. That belief often comes from a good heart. You care about honesty. You care about fairness. You care about open conversation. So you naturally assume that if people hear your side, they will understand. But when someone has chosen to misunderstand you, explanation has limits. This is where boundaries become necessary. Boundaries are not revenge. They are not punishment. They are not about winning. They are about protecting your emotional health from endless loops of conflict and disappointment. A manipulative person often creates an atmosphere where you feel responsible for correcting every lie, every rumor, every wrong impression. Soon your whole life can start revolving around managing what other people think of you. Instead of healing, you are chasing acceptance from people who may never have planned to listen fairly. And that chase becomes exhausting because the goalposts never stop moving. Every explanation gets twisted. Every clarification becomes another accusation. Every peace offering becomes another opening for manipulation. Setting boundaries means learning to tell the difference between people who are confused and people who are committed to seeing you in the worst possible light. Someone who truly cares about truth will ask, listen, and consider what you say, even if they need time. Someone who has already chosen the other story will often dismiss you before you finish a sentence. They may interrupt, doubt your motives, or act as if your defense proves your guilt. Conversations like that rarely bring understanding because the conclusion was already decided. Boundaries help you stop pouring energy into closed doors. Healthy boundaries also mean giving yourself permission to stop seeking approval from everyone. That can feel uncomfortable because most people want to be liked, understood, and seen fairly. But when your self-worth depends on being accepted by all, you become easy to manipulate. If someone can influence how others view you and your emotional state depends on those opinions, then your peace is suddenly in their hands. Boundaries take that power back. They remind you that your value does not rise and fall with gossip, social pressure, or the judgments of people who refuse to look at the full picture. As your boundaries grow stronger, you become more selective about where your attention goes. Instead of spending your life trying to rebuild relationships based on suspicion, drama, or control, you begin investing in connections built on honesty, mutual respect, and trust. You learn that not every misunderstanding needs your response. Not every accusation deserves your time. And not every relationship is meant to be saved. Walking away from people who are determined to misunderstand you is not failure. It is self-respect. It is how you protect your mind, your energy, and your peace. And after a smear campaign, that peace becomes precious. So does your ability to trust again. That is why the people you choose next matter so much. Because healing is not only about what you leave behind, it is also about what you allow to grow around you once the dust begins to settle. And the kind of people you move toward will shape how fully you recover from what was done to you. After going through something like this, one of the healthiest choices you can make is becoming very intentional about who gets access to your life. When someone has twisted your image and turned people against you, it is easy to feel like trust itself is dangerous. You may start wondering if every friendship is temporary, if every kind gesture has a hidden motive, or if every new bond will someday end in betrayal. Those fears are understandable. Manipulation can make the whole world feel unsafe. But letting one unhealthy person define your view of all relationships keeps you trapped long after they are gone. Healing often begins when you start surrounding yourself with emotionally healthy people. These are people who value honesty, respect, fairness, and real connection. They communicate differently. They do not rush toward one-sided stories. If they hear something troubling about someone they know, they pause. They ask questions. They compare what they heard with their own direct experience. They know conflict is complex. They understand that fairness requires listening before judging, that independent thinking creates safety. It creates room for trust to grow without being controlled by rumor or fear. And if there is one thing to hold on to through all of this, it is this. Your first battle is not for your reputation. It is for your peace of mind. You cannot control the stories someone decides to tell. You cannot force people to question what they badly want to believe, but you can refuse to let those stories define you. People will misunderstand. Some will judge without asking. Some will mistake confidence for arrogance, boundaries for selfishness, or silence for guilt. Let them. Their opinions are not the final word on your character. Your life is. Your choices are. Your consistency is. And in the end, that truth is stronger than any campaign built on distortion. Remember this clearly. Manipulation may win attention for a while, but it cannot create real respect. Lies can move fast, but they need constant support to stay alive. Truth often moves more slowly because it does not need performance. It shows itself through pattern, through time, through the steady weight of a life lived with honesty. Every day you choose self-respect over approval, peace over chaos, and integrity over revenge. You weaken the hold this person once had over you. You do not have to chase everyone who walks away. You do not have to explain yourself to every person who misunderstands you. And you do not have to sacrifice your emotional health trying to convince people who already closed their minds. The people who are truly meant for your life will care more about your actions than rumors, more about your consistency than gossip, and more about your character than someone else's carefully shaped story. So stop carrying the impossible burden of controlling how every person sees you. Put that energy somewhere better. Build a life that feels honest. Protect your boundaries. Trust your instincts. Choose relationships where understanding is mutual, not one-sided. And never let another person's need to damage your image destroy your faith in your own worth. Because the real victory is not forcing the manipulator to admit they were wrong. The real victory is building a life so rooted in truth, peace, and authenticity that their lies no longer get to shape your future. And if that is the place you are walking toward now, keep going. Slowly, if you need to. Quietly, if you must. But keep going. That is how you win.